Yeah, I understand. Wonderful.
Easy.
So remember to call these people. That number.
The meeting has not started yet, but please let me know if you can hear us.
Yeah. Course papers to validate. That's what I said. I have that on my iPad. Thank you. The date that the actual plant, the plants are due. We have
Pre-application, which we don't submit is August 5th. We're working on a bunch of them right now.
Yeah.
So that is August 5th, coming right up. That is not necessary. Grant applications, right? We've got plenty of time, but we're for some of the major projects, we're trying to put pre-application grants in. That was, so that is, yeah, that is the pre-application. That's the actual pre-application, grant, not the full grant,
And you said September 30th?
September 30th. Right. Wait, no. September, no, it's not the 30th. That's the second round. I believe it's September, I've been backing up. I think it's the 5th, so I need to submit that. Because I know the date for hearing is August 15th. We've got to have a public hearing. Prior to the submission of any, listing what we have. I'll give you a better date, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I keep trying to find the date.
I go from deadline to deadline, so right now, we're focused on the 5th.
Yeah. I was gonna say. I'm gonna call us together. I'm Sonia Spalding. Thank you for coming. I'm Beth. Thanks for coming. Welcome, whether you're from Ward 1 or from Ward 2 or Ward 3, welcome. Thank you for coming. We wanted to, the meeting is planned for 5:30 to 7:30, but we may wrap up sooner depending on if we have more people come in. If we have lots of great ideas and we have great conversation, if you have to leave before that, please feel free. We're glad that you're here. Would like to start? Should I start? So Beth and I wanted to have this meeting just to be able to give people an opportunity to understand what the community development block grant for disaster relief is specifically. And then if you have any ideas about how projects or things that we might include in our application. We have some ideas, but we want to hear from you first. And then we'll talk about those ideas. And then, so number 3 is brainstorming ideas. That's where we brainstorm, maybe in smaller groups, maybe with just your neighbor. And then we'll come back together and share those ideas. And then we'll talk about the proposals that we got from Amanda Exton, who's Ward 2 City Councilor, and Tom Lozon, our mayor. And then we're gonna have you all rank those ideas and proposals, just so we can get some feedback on how you feel about them. And then we'll discuss those briefly, and then we'll wrap up and go home. Okay? That brought snacks. If you're hungry, feel free to have a snack. Would you like to go around, since we're a small group, and just at least say your name so everyone knows who, instead of like, hey you, we could do that? Would that be better? Would you like to start?
I'm Sam Southwell, and I'm from Ward 2. I'm Sue Higby. I live in Ward 1, but I manage building because I spend work. So I have sort of an instinct about 2 layers. Michelle Feeney, Ward 1. I'm Gordon Rose, and I'm Betsy, Ward 1.
Phil Lyons, 42.
Michelle Brown, Ward 3.
Tom Lozon, on Nelson Street, one with my mic there.
That's the dentist.
I see. I see you out meeting.
Well, thank you all for coming. I'm writing down your names so I can. So the first thing, I grabbed this fact sheet off the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's about the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. So some of the things that have to happen for an area to be eligible for this particular grant is the president has to declare a major disaster. And then Congress may appropriate funds to the Department of Housing and Urban Development when there are significant unmet needs for long-term recovery. So that has happened. And so the CDBG-DR grant funds will be coming to Vermont, specifically part of Lamoille County and part of, or all of Washington County. And we want to hear from you on how you think the funds should be used. So I have my notes here. Oh yeah, it's a significant amount of money. So there's a $67,845,000 from HUD for that has to be for the July of 2023 flooding event, and $54,276,000 is from Lamoille, and specifically a zip code, which is Johnson, and then all of Washington County. And it's split on how it can be allocated. So the things that can, the way that the funds can be used, there's
Is it divided in Washington County based on what is estimated to be the damage level in each of the communities?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So it's based on the fantastic ideas that are generated in the community. Hopefully, yes. Okay.
So the funds can be used for disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure, housing, or economic revitalization. And they are specifically split out. So there's 5% that can go, oh, that's for administration. Planning, housing is 61% can go for housing or is going to go to housing. 22% is going to go to infrastructure, give or take. And then there's a small amounts for administration and planning and for the CDBG are set aside. I don't know.
Who developed those percentages?
I think Tom got them from the ACCD plan. Action
One
plan.
copy?
I just as long as I have an answer. I don't need,
Yeah, no, it says that it's from page 116 of the ACCD action plan.
Yeah. That's what I use.
So we won't get into too much of the nitty gritty. I just want you to understand what the funds are. The city of Barrie is planning on applying for funding, and we wanted to hear from you on how you think those funds should be used. And I realize this is a really big, like, put on your thinking cap and throw out all your big ideas. Has to be disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure, housing, economic revitalization. Now, mind you, the biggest chunk of money is allocated for housing, and it looks like the second biggest chunk of money is for infrastructure. I'm guessing those others are much, much smaller. I don't have that in front of me, but that's what I'm guessing based on this chart. So with that in mind, do you have any questions?
So who did the? Is that how it came down? From.
I think this, or the state of Vermont, the ACCA,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
So the federal government gives it to the state and the state says, okay, this is.
So you know, and then it goes to HUD. HUD approves it, and then it goes back to the state. Yeah, I just wondered who decided on that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You say the things.
Do you want me to write? How about if I write it on my phone? Would that be helpful?
No. You want me to write it when you talk? Okay.
It'll be just, very easy. So.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
You have really good.
Yeah, your phone.
Do I?
You have. Oh. You want to take a picture? I can give you this. The other one.
I think it's probably on the probably. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, this one. No, I just did this today.
Oh, okay. Sure, maybe I'll try that.
Oh, you do have your phone.
I'm learning to use my phone. So.
No worries, just yeah, perfect. And we're back to it.
So. I was not a teacher in any.
And who are the decision makers?
On awarding the grant or on which projects get moved forward?
The awarding the grant.
The state.
There's actually a citizen panel that grades, that will be grading. There's going to be 2 rounds that they know of. There could be a third. There's definitely going to be 2. So this is first round, which those applications are due September 30th. And there's a second round, and I believe, don't hold me to this, I think those are due, I'm sure about the September 30th. I'm not sure about October 27th.
And
then there's a citizen panel that actually has a matrix, and they're going to grade them.
the names of these individuals are listed at a website. So
I don't recall that I've named them yet. I haven't seen that list of citizen, grader. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure I won't be asked to be on it. So if you're from Barry, that'll taint it. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I know how they're grading them. And then ACTD is the final, working with the governor, is the final decision maker.
Okay, do you have any other questions before we set you loose for brainstorming? And we had a North End forum for those of you who came to the North End forum, and we discussed some of the ideas already, but for people who were not able to be there, or if you have other ideas that are maybe more specific to something maybe that you noticed because you work in downtown or you live in Wardwalk or whatever it might be, love to hear from you. So that's why we asked you to come. Do you want to work in small groups? Would that feel more comfortable? Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question that, I know that in Ward 1, there were some areas that were affected by the flooding and stuff. I think, is there one by in Ward 1? Actually, look at it.
Is that work up on Couriers? Courier,
Oh,
I should know
side.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Oh, yeah, we changed it.
Go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was not, that was a, well, I mean, it was related to the flood. That was a mudslide.
Right, and it wasn't specifically a flood, but it was caused during
Yeah.
flood, so, and I know that there's the culvert or the way the river was directed under the river, under the city, that when we have these torrential down, structure there enough to handle it. So that, if people were, I don't know what I think, but if there was something that could be done there in Ward One, would these funds be able to be used for that, to help address some of the flooding that happens up there?
So in that particular instance, I don't think that, because that is, that was a landslide issue. And I think in that particular place, it's just a very, very steep slope and down to the brook. And then it's also still a very steep slope down to the bottom of Courier Street. The landslide was on, the property that was impacted was on Courier Street.
Okay, so I guess what I'm looking at is, if that's a place that's going to continue to flood and have torrential down, kind of rain, because the capacity for getting that water downstream is just has limitations. Is there anything we talk about, any kinds of remediation for that? And that is my use to do that, to preserve that.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
actually on that was on Counselor Guston's list, and what she proposed was flood retention and riverbank restoration starting up in our neighborhood where Sonia and I live, where the Edgewood Brook comes down, it crosses Nelson Street, then it goes down behind Lincoln School, down Delmont, and wipes out folks at Courier Park. So she actually talked about some flood mitigation measures and has those on her list to try to stop and store the water before it gets down into the city and the Courier Park area. So that is it.
But there's some other storm water management things.
Okay, because it's a big work plan.
Right. No, I'm just, I've got some ideas about what to do with the stormwater that comes downhill. And ends up downtown.
It feels like it's small.
We could just do yeah,
Just like housing preservation is really important also. It costs anywhere, we're looking at a lot of options to build there housing. We can also keep the house. And also stabilize that business.
so you're thinking, what can we do to preserve? That's what you're saying, what can we do to make sure that we have that, keep the housing there?
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's like an area of pretty well preserved homes are pretty stable. I think there's a lot of common there.
are you specifically thinking of more one, or are you thinking just
I mean, well,
anywhere?
Anywhere in the city. That seems to be especially vulnerable space.
Like Courier Park is what you're suggesting?
Well, however. Just for the right.
Yeah.
We have things there. I think that. Was all one.
Right. So I think the thing that we also have to be cognizant of is that there are, I think in certain areas, we aren't able to necessarily do flood mitigation. When we were listening to the scientists, they were talking about if it's really steep and fast, that's not a place for necessarily trying to slow it down. We're not going to slow it down. You have to wait until it gets to a point where you're able to like give it more space or slow it down or whatever the flood mitigation measures. And in that particular area, I think it's just very steep walls, and I think that steep riverbank walls, and I think that's part of the issue why it just like flies through there. But also very steep, so I don't know if there's anything you can necessarily slow it down there, but then as it gets to the bottom and sort of slows down, that may be where we're able to do something.
Or even backing up, and I don't know if
I think it goes up into very,
Yeah, it does.
yeah, that's from, I'm just seeing Yeah, so, I would love to see mine go to a computer model that shows all of what's into the various city water system, let's just call it a system. And what I'm looking for is, first, the phase one would be an inventory of things, kind of boring things like the diameter of various outgoing pipes, the intake capacity of, let's say, the storm sewer drain in various neighborhoods. And it's sort of like a building block exercise. I have a little experience, there's an underground river to the building that I manage, Studio Place Arts. And when we put a sculpture park there, I went to the vault to try to figure out exactly where the river was. And I discovered that the map was wrong. I was bringing in, like 2-ton works, and I didn't want to see the culvert collapse. And so I looked very carefully. It wasn't correctly mapped. And so I think just knowing from that experience that we have an old system here in the city, we certainly don't have an idea how outdated each of the neighborhoods really is. The most recent flood, the July flood of 24, I got a phone call because College Street, Liberty Street, and all the streets that were crisscrossed to Main Street were flooding. They were going up over the curb. There was no place for the water to go at that height on the hill. And so I got a call, head down to spa because you got to shut down your systems because if it's that bad up high on the hill with no place for the water to go. So that means that the outgoing system for up on the hill probably needs some improvements, but we don't, as far as I know, the capacity to actually, let's say, take an aerial view of what systems have been constructed over time, what their limitations are, and then if there are inputs coming from, let's say, Berry Town, heavy rainstorm, how do they affect the systems that we have in place? Because it's kind of like we're just putting little Band-Aids up. And as we develop those that are up high, that will also produce potential water problems coming down the hill. So anyway, computer model would be my number one goal of getting some money.
So we are doing we have already appropriated allocated money for
Hydro.
A study of what is scope of the study and
Exactly what you described.
exactly what you just said. And that's,
Yeah.
do you remember there was a helicopter flying low over the city? That was part of that hydraulics.
will it have a watershed perspective?
Yes. So what we're doing too is, we know our storm system is compromised.
Mhm.
Do you remember the rain we had Friday? I had at the Domino, we own the Domino, I think Karen and I can show you a picture. My contractor took a picture and he said, your storm system is backing up in the parking lot. Ours is fine, I know, because we have them all maintained, so we know our system is compromised. So what this study will do, it'll do a few things. It will map. We have storm systems, we really don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Okay, it will map all of our storm systems. It will tell us the condition of our storm system. So they'll run cameras, tell us the condition of our storm system. So we'll know the size, we'll know the condition, and then we'll also have models that will tell us, okay, if we're going to get 2 inches of rain in 2 hours, how is that water going to move through the city? If we're going to get 6 inches of rain in 2 hours, how bad is it going to be? So, and it'll tell us, this is what it looks like with your existing storm system. And if you do these maintenance items or these upgrades, this is how it works. So that's a great idea. And
As long as you're doing it great.
Yep.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of work. We won't receive that study until September of 2026. There's that much work. So we'll get pieces of it,
Correct.
but the complete study we won't get until, is it September? Or it might even be December. It's 2026.
And the other thing I want you to think about, after having conversations with, or hearing, we'll talk about our stormwater system. We also we can't put in stormwater system that's going to handle the, that wouldn't make sense because, well, maybe they're coming every year or years, you're not really but it doesn't make sense. You're really trying to build a system that will take care of your usual rain events. And it would be such a high price tag to be able to put in a system that would handle such a large influx of water all at once. So
Can you describe the last 3 floods that have happened in the last few years? Where do they fit the 100-year flood scenario?
well, I think part of the problem is that when we put in these systems, we were planning on, our usual rain events. And then as the climate has changed, as developments have happened in areas, lots of different things have changed in our local area as far as developments that are being built and more runoff, larger rain events. So, when we put systems in, we didn't necessarily plan for the what if, in 2023, 2024, 2025, and here we are. So now we're trying to, not a Band-Aid on it, but figure out what's going to be the next best.
Ways I could.
Okay.
Here's what happened. A common occurrence in your mind?
It is now.
The 2023 flood, 2024 flood, I think that I'm not.
We should at least plan.
That was a cross between the two.
Right.
Yeah, we should be.
24 was the 100-year event.
Yeah.
That happened 2 years apart.
I think the biggest issue is that the climate continues to change. And weather events continue to be more extreme. And even if we planned on, this kind of flooding, it could get worse, like in 10 more years. Like, how are we going to know that?
Well, they said, think about, we were holding our breath not that many weeks ago. Sutton got creamed.
Yeah.
They're only 30 miles from that storm shifted north and then sat over Sutton. 2023, that storm didn't shift and it sat over there. And that's what happened. So that's why we think it's important. Like, that was the first question I asked. Tell me what it looks like in Barrie if it rains 4 inches in 2 hours. I want to know. So that we can watch, and even when you watch the weather patterns, that storm was supposed to not, we weren't supposed to get it bad, but we were supposed to get something, and we got nothing. I don't think it even rains.
Or just a pen. Ideas of what we should spend on?
So the plan is not to create a stormwater system that can handle the kind of weather that's coming or has come.
No, I think we probably want to upgrade our system, but I don't think we will necessarily be able to upgrade our system for 100-year floods because, the culverts will, our culverts would be,
I mean, for the new definition of 100-year.
the new definition of it.
Yeah. Climate change.
Because of climate changing, I think it would just be an exorbitant price tag for us to be able to do that. And across the entire city, you can imagine. We have a hard enough time paving our roads. So imagine if we had to upgrade our entire stormwater system for the new 100-year flood, what that would look like. I don't even know if we can imagine what that would look
And then we could afford it.
I think we are doing the buyout, changing the space that we're having to build floodplains. So that more space and people are talking about lighting up the rack. To change how that system is working and cleaning up stuff that's accumulated there and just doing other kinds of maintenance things that all when you're putting together, addressing the trestle. The trestle going out was that like a 3-foot change in the amount of water. Won't back up again. The water gets that. 3 feet's a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes it's going to be a matter of not that we can promise that your basement isn't going to flood, but maybe it will only be a couple of inches versus a few feet. And that's
first floor.
right. And so I know that's not ideal, but that's, if we can keep doing all of these smaller fixes to help address, and I say smaller in the sense that, that they're smaller projects and more manageable chunks instead of like, we're going to just redo our entire stormwater system, which would be nice, but I'm not sure how.
And individually, people have moved their electrical services up to the first floor, made their basements so that they can be easily mucked out we know. And we're looking, I mean, those are all things that I think contribute to our business.
Yes.
And so maybe that's a part of it too, is how can we, what do we?
Can we spend the money on that? Can we spend that money helping people move their equipment from the basement?
You can. There are guardrails on this money, but we are looking into not only helping people move who haven't move appliances and electrical appliances from their basement, but also raise their homes.
Yeah.
And one thing that we had a North End neighborhood, and Sonia talked about that. And one of my big takeaways, and it actually caused us to pivot with one of the bigger projects, was people really appreciated the sense of neighborhood in the North End.
Yeah.
So, we heard them, we got that message, we heard them. But one woman also said, I'd like to stay space to walk in on the North End so that I can take walks and I can feel safe. And so that was, my big takeaway from the North End meeting, and I'm sure Beth, it's on yours as well. People want to retain the neighborhood feel, and I don't blame them. So we've kind of pivoted. We had talked about a larger 50 to 60 unit apartment structure, not like Northbury Manor. Northbury Manor is 10 stories. So imagine Northbury Manor. Really not as obtrusive. And so we sort of bookend them and leave the neighborhood in the middle for people who want to stay there. But yes, we can provide, limited grants. I mean, the prices we're getting now is $300,000 a home to raise it. That's the average grant award. That to me, I mean, I've been building my whole life. That to me just seems astounding. I think Capstone ought to start with Stop Weatherization. They're a great organization, but maybe they ought to start a house raising company instead of a weatherization company, because I know we've got to find a way to do it cheaper than $300,000 a home.
Well, this is probably a dumb idea.
No such thing.
How much instead of raising the house?
We're doing some of that.
I don't know which one to work on.
Actually, it's a totally great idea, and I was going to kind of chime in and say, there's nothing that bothers me more than, let's say, pretend you're doing an aerial vary, and you look down and all you see is vast parking lot, vast street network, et cetera. They should all be permeable surfaces, and they should be low, and they should allow for ponding. We just spent a huge amount of money repaving that space behind Berry Opera House, for example. And I was kind of cringing. So I thought, oh my God, let's just dig like 4 feet down with a ramp and allow for more drainage. And then we've got a holding pond. So taking advantage, I think that is precisely what we.
From first to sixth.
First.
Yeah. We lower it back, don't lower it so much that all water goes into the.
Actually, one of our strategies, if you look on Route 302 from let's just say Beckley to 6, because it makes it easier. When the governor was in and basically said to the city, I want to help you, one of his ideas was to actually buy the first rows of houses closest to 302 and make that like a 50-foot buffer, concave. So exactly what you're talking about, concave with a walking path and not to use to. He figured granite sculptures, and he said, what a great thing in green spaces, and so if it's
It could
flooded.
be a canal.
But and we've held on to that idea, and even the air property at the end, where the used car place used to be, and now it's not there anymore. He's actually in the federal buyout program, and there we've talked about river access for people who actually want to recreate the river. So lowering that whole area and putting in you can put in playgrounds, and the permeable asphalt too. I'm intrigued by that. I'm trying to do research on it because I don't know how well it holds up in Vermont.
It's the speed. The third flood was the water was moving so fast, I could barely walk into my building. I was just clinging. I mean, it was just because of the amount of pavement here.
Yeah.
It was really frightening.
Yeah.
So Mother Nature's going to win. With that speed.
And the power of water.
But yeah,
before the 2023 flood, the people across the street from me had just moved. And I think it was like their first day. We got really bad rain and the streets started flooding. And I had to walk over and let them know that truck out on the road because it was going to get flooded. And just, there was only 4 or 5 inches of water. And I could feel it pouring. So yeah, the water.
It's only 4 inches to make our.
Poor Sonia, we're getting off task here.
Well,
No, you're good.
one thing that I didn't see in the last conversation was the idea of, and I know this sounds stupid, but planting water absorbing plants, right? Like willow trees. You would have to do that higher up, beyond, more into Berry Town.
Like a rain garden?
I mean, that too, that too, but you think about, there are plants and trees that absorb a lot of water. And it would be kind of nice to see something like that as we're talking about it. I know everybody wants to, make the river go to where it wants to go, but we live within a 4-mile square municipality, and every house we take off from the grand list means that a tax burden goes up for everybody else. And I personally would like to see us look into ideas of modifying our river, whether that means building up banks or, my favorite word, dredging.
It's already been modified, though. It's not a river now.
Well, exactly, which is the reason why I say that dredging is a good idea, because we don't have a natural river.
It is not a river by any step.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Somebody went out, but very fast under the water.
Correct.
So apparently, not apparently,
Well, some places.
dredging is not a dirty word, but they call it sediment management. So,
I like the D word.
I know, I'm just using the word that has been
Yes.
used.
I
by
know.
people who work
I
on
know.
it. But it is definitely said it's, maintaining the riverbed is definitely a part of it, but it's not, I think everyone thinks that it will solve everything. I think it may solve some issues in some places. But I don't think, listening to the scientists, we've learned that, that may not have been the best idea that we were doing all those years ago. We're trying to get a stormwater table so that we can see how that works. If you allow the sediment to be there versus you take the sediment away. And that would help. I know it'll help me, because in theory, I've heard them say that that's not going to help, but I'd love to be able to see it with my own eyes with, okay, this is what happens when you put sediment in the river. This is what happens when you take it out, and being able to see, what really happens to the river, what happens to the water with that. I think it can be used, but very strategically in certain locations and that.
And just follow up on the sediment, what you were just talking about. We actually saw that about 10 years ago down at the DPW building. But what a lot of those studies and that does not show is what Sue just said. It's channelized, right? Most rivers don't have granite slabs on the side, which I still haven't heard any study that talks about how dredging is bad for rivers that have granite slabs.
It's not a natural body of water.
It's not.
Right.
So since it's not a natural body of water, we should treat it as such and not as.
Right. But with this caveat, Michael, you have to have some consideration for the next city down the hill.
Correct.
What you're doing is you're speeding up the water. And one of my big concerns is that whole watershed management thing. If I lived in Montpelier, I'd be marching in the city hall and asking, please don't do this.
Well, and that's something that we should definitely be pushing for, as a regionalized watershed management. And which, the comment that I made about the willow trees, and I know that sounds really stupid.
No,
but
it doesn't.
if you had a boatload of willow trees at the top of the river here, the brook, you would see that dry up a lot more.
I also think we have, there is the part of the Stevens branch here in downtown Barry where the art is. There's the brooks that are, you know, the brook that runs next to Tom's house in my neighborhood, it's just a brook.
Correct. But it's
So I think
flat.
there are all these little brooks that are coming in that are,
1527.
those are the ones that are also, they're not granted and they're not, you know, they're all running.
But it does turn into flat.
Walking
Right.
places that don't have drainage sides.
Yes.
That's when you get mudslides and.
So the places that do have ground, the water would just go past.
Right, it goes faster, it goes faster, and then when it comes out of that, it erodes more.
So maybe when we get the water table, which I've been. It's on our flood mitigation plan and I. But it would be interesting if we can put something up that will, you know, simulate that granite channel to see how it would impact. And then the impact it would have down, because I do think that it definitely would have an impact on our neighbors in Berlin and Montpelier.
We don't have a lot of space for water retention.
Right.
But you know what does? Berlin. And Barry Town does, which gets into that regionalized watershed. And I understand that we don't want it to move fast through the city, but we kind of do. Because we don't have a place for it to meander when it's really fast. Correct.
Yeah.
And it's not really fast right now when it's dry.
Right. All right, is there anything else that we should add to this list? It's a good list.
There's some, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, permeable parking lots, but also deeper. To think of them as pond locations.
Okay, so I have lower roads, I'll say lower roads and urban ones.
You know, fellas, my car versus the, do my house.
Yeah.
Well, you can also move your car, you can't move your car.
Right.
We could, you know, would be perfect, right? The
So
DOR.
like there's a bunch of elements was parking over on my, was built up 4 or 5 feet, so whatever. Perhaps if it wasn't there,
But there are a lot
maybe
of,
there'd be more room for water spread out instead of standing right down into my basement.
there are a lot of people who have their houses bought and they were denied because the city can't afford to lose the
Yes.
property tax value. And so people, at least when I read the article, it was actually in the Post. I think, that people are stuck in a house after sellable. The town can't afford to take off the tax rolls. But every aspect of community service that I see in the church that I'm working talks about the need for housing. And if you created more housing, more affordable housing, and would that give any to reduce the number, to increase the number of housing units? Yeah. Would that loosen up the possibility for the people who are stuck?
And some of those people have chosen to elevate their homes.
But I'm talking about ag.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And some of the people who couldn't get buyouts are they're gonna go a different route. But for the people who are not gonna buy out and don't haven't been homes, they would probably be more interested in saying, yeah, let's get more housing online because then I could maybe then I can with that those additional units will help cover the loss of mine. And we don't really want to lose any though, because the less that we have, the more it spreads the taxes on fewer people. And if you add units, yes, if you add houses, yes.
It seems like a really crisis need for affordable housing.
I agree.
And a crisis need.
That's why in the list that Councilor Dustin and I listed, you'll talk about in a minute. You know, I lean heavily on housing. You know, 61%. I've got this is a big list for Barry. We're probably going to have to tear it down a little bit. $41 million is a total, and we're going to have to pick and choose. But I can virtually guarantee you that I will support, this list that you saw from the state, 61% of the money towards housing, 61% of our money, the very ask, should go towards housing. So I'd like to see us develop between helping, and it's all part of the same strategy, helping the people who want to stay, elevate their homes, but also, the plan that Town suggested, we're looking at over 200 new units. And yes, people say, well, would it be market rate? Would it be affordable? Would it be subsidized? It would be sort of all three. And the way I look at it, if 25% or 30% of Barry's population is at or below the poverty line, then 30% of the housing should be subsidized.
Right.
Because if you make it 100% marketable, well, you're pushing those folks out. So, you're changing the balance. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
But from what I've heard, housing is a good start on stabilizing people who are needing a number of services, but housing.
I'm doing a good job, and they'll be fine. Always.
I have one.
Yeah.
So the computer model of the stormwater system, what happens to the brain? Well, that take into like flood mitigation. That's that could happen.
I
You
think
know what I
it's,
mean?
I think it's, yeah, no, I think it's going to show us what's happening, what it looks like right now. Like, this is what you have.
Okay.
That's my understanding of the hydrology study.
But then,
This is what we have. And then when they did, the river, this group, we got a grant so that we could, utilize some scientists to come in and do some work for us. So we could submit a grant application. And they talked about, taking out the Berlin Street Bridge, redoing the Willie Street Bridge, and those, removing the trestle, and those things did actually have models to talk about what would happen if we did this. What would happen if we did this and this? What would happen if we did this, this, and this? So I think we have to know what we have
no, I understand that.
to then just to figure out, okay, if we do this, then what's that? But we don't know what we have, and I think that's the trouble that
Right,
we're.
but it would all be taken into account. Again,
I hope so, yes, but I think we have to know what we have first. That's that's the trick. Sue?
I think it would be helpful to have some type of citywide, like a potential flooding prediction, and warning system in place. And, I bring this up because the building that I manage has been flooded probably 5 times since I started working there. And in the past, I relied on a little vertical rod in the basement, which had a fishing bob on it. When it went up an inch, I'd get a phone call at my house, and I would call the police department and say, you should probably get your guys out and redirect traffic because my basement's starting to fill. That's the kind of thing that actually adds up. It allows people to know what to do next. But the problem is, the last 3 floods, I didn't know until everything, all hell broke loose. Really, I didn't have time to shut down my elevator system and do some of the basic prep because of it was super saturated. And I knew that there were some sandbags moving around downtown, but I didn't really know that the seriousness had reached kind of a market level. And so, and I'm pretty watchful. And then all of a sudden, everything filled up without a lot of warning. So the question that I have is there a way? I know that the weather prediction staff and the hurricane staff has been, reduced because of the administration saying that, but we still have to value whatever we have for information purposes and to share that information as quickly and completely as possible. Because, you only have a few minutes before everything fills up. And the difference between saving an elevator and not is switching off the toggle. It's either a $10,000 repair or a $100,000 repair.
Nicholas set up reboot for us, and I think that's been really helpful. I think I would encourage them to get it on their phone. But I
Not really a flood warning.
well, I thought it was because when the last Friday's storm was coming through. It was put out we anticipate a heavy rain event, and it's a possibility. All the rivers, and then he listed that the rivers were low, was being watched, and if the river had been going up, we would have gotten more notice if the river's going up. It's at this level now, it's at this level. And he carries that with him, and I know there must be a backup person, but it's been very good at following any kind of emergency changes in the roads, the streets, everything that's listed in the lead group. And the VT alert system, I know we're still using it for some things, but the lead group is just everything, you know, from the pool's gonna be open an extra hour to.
Does that cover people who don't really? So,
You can get emails too. I get an email.
Yeah,
So I think you can.
so there will be,
If you sign up for it.
If you sign up for it, and I think you can choose how you, like, do you want to get a text? Do you want it to just push through your app? Do you want to get an email? I get an email. And I'm always checking my email, so it's really handy for me, but I think I also get a text, so.
I tried to set up an Aldrich friend last week, and she just doesn't have all the right stuff on her phone. So it's my job to send her a text or call her.
I do also think, as a side note, we don't have a beach, a river beach, and that's one of the things that's on the pictures.
Well, we do that.
Oh, we do, but
Yeah,
it's
case it's that.
very low tech.
Okay. If you got down Burnham Street and you look across towards Metro Way, goes
where would you get it?
there, but it would be a little more
High tech.
modern.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
How do you make decisions like this? But for sure, we don't seem to have, if people like me, who are really the information management types, have to watch for sandbags to really know that it's getting serious, then I feel like something could be improved.
Yeah.
I mean, the difficulty of it is the way these storms move through and then they sit.
Yes.
And that happens so fast.
I get it.
And honestly, by the time we knew in 23 that storm had stopped moving and was just sitting over,
Right.
literally over Barry,
4 inches.
it was too late by the time we realized it, even though, you know, we've all gotten great at watching the Doppler radar come through, but even the weather, you know, even forecasters they can't predict it. They can't predict when that storm was just gonna miss Barry and sit over Sutton. By the time they figured it out, it was too late for Sutton.
Yeah.
So that part is really hard. So I absolutely agree with you. I wish there was some way we could. It's a question we've asked, and
Or like things like soil saturation. When do we find out that we're in a super saturated condition in our larger community?
that's easier to manage, and that's part of
Yeah.
the study.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So regarding Stu's comment about a system, I mean, I'm thinking of like a warning siren. Is that what you're thinking, Stu? Because I think that would be actually a really good idea.
I have to admit, I grew up in the Midwest where we had a noon siren and a 10 p.m. siren. So I'm accustomed to this.
And I mean, we all hear the train, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's loud, but yeah, I think that actually, and we used to have them in the city, and we got rid of them.
The 10 p.m. was, by the way, teenage curfew.
Which is not. There was conversation, I don't remember if it was done. Did you guys have somebody go through the sewers? Like from Jefferson to,
I think that's part of the hydrology. Yeah.
so we don't get the answer of
No,
whether
you actually can't, Michael, because there are.
gases.
So what can happen is you get debris that's like, you know, the big sewer, the one that Teddy Bedot and I actually walked through when we were 8 years old, from Rulo to Matheson School on a bed. We got ice cream. You know, Eddie and I were not that smart. And of course, back then it seemed like it was 10 feet tall. You know, I'm told it's 6. We know that that's damage. We know that there's debris in there. We know that there are dead animals in there that rot. And so we actually can't send someone in that confined space because what the hydrologist told us is that literally you can round a corner and there's a pocket of gas there and it'll kill it quickly.
Oh, boy.
So, and then with backpacks, now you're confined because you can't. So we literally can't send someone. There are spaces we have to send cameras. We can't send humans.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's part of the set.
The whole drone.
Yeah. We're sending cameras down there so we can tell you, you know, by I think December 26, we'll have a whole movie of moving through, you know, that big culvert that runs past Sue's building and past the quarry and under my building on Metro Way and ends up on Stevens Bridge. And one of the points you brought up, sir, and it was a good point, because we won't have, so on the list that council is working on, we've got about $7 million for flood mitigation and, you know, restoration, you know, so basically storm system restoration. I mean, I know we're light years ahead of no other municipalities even ordered a study like we have. So I know we're light years ahead of a lot of towns and cities in central Vermont, but we won't have that study until 26. So we're likely going to submit something here, submit a round number, $5 million, and say, we don't know, we can't give you specific projects because we don't have the study. Once we have the study, we'll be able to tell you. Maybe it's cleaning out that culvert. Maybe it's upsizing this culvert. And then I can tell you it's going to be a really expensive list. Probably it'll easily double the 15 million that the state has allocated. So as a city, we're just going to have to prioritize. And I think that's a commitment from the council is that I think this year was 500,000 or 250,000. That you'll see more money going into flood mitigation. You know, we've got to put the money away in our budget. So we won't be really specific in this funding round, but I don't think anybody can be really specific. We're committed to picking the projects that will make the biggest difference and making sure we've got them in the right order.
Or any other ideas? I think in all these things, when we're talking about adjusting the size of the rivers, we should include economic revitalization. What I mean is like, let's turn Berry into like the Riverwalk capital of Vermont. You know, we built a big pond to capture water, and now it's a park, and now it's, you know, in all these things where if we're doing stuff, we should think, how can we get people to come and spend their money?
And then it qualifies for that other category.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a tiny category, but if we're like, if we build like levees or something, and then we put a walk on the top of it, and we put lights, and all the bridges have lights now. You know, this kind of stuff that builds excitement and makes people want to come here and spend money, and help us do more projects.
I'm saying Creek or River.
Yes.
As an attraction.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yes.
is that,
Yes.
is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I lived here. I've only been for a short time, and I didn't realize water rates. I'm like, how come I can't go down there? How come I can't on a hot summer day dip my toes in? How come kids aren't all the time running around these places? They are. I can't see them because they don't.
Some places they are, I think.
Yeah.
You might want to join the access.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a thought. But that's one of the things that they've been looking at. Yeah, it's been part of it.
Mhm.
The river is deep and the access spaces are extreme.
Yeah.
There's
So and
one
maybe it doesn't need to be sitting next to
sitting next to
having
it.
a bench.
And go and have that conversation with them. That is the current conversation about where can I develop those kinds of places. Down at the Bennett Museum, Scott's done a wonderful job. They were planning on river access there and it washed away. When the floods. But he has beautiful trails now and he has benches and so.
more.
Yeah, and just getting people to start going down and using those spaces. I think will also help to promote, other spaces getting developed.
Yeah.
And there is
Then
some
you're happy to
access,
go to the quarry, go to the restaurants.
yeah. There's an access off Burnham Street. You know about that access?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so might be something looking at that, because that is really accessible place to get down into the river. It's just got some. So the phrase regional watershed management does imply what I'm about to say, but we have to be very specific. We haven't really said anything about developing partnerships to stretch what dollars we get that much farther. And the partnership could be like with a sportsman group, like Trout Unlimited, to build, fisheries habitat. This is an example. It doesn't have to be sort of like straight, oh, we're only going to do this type of development. We should think about what are the groups that manage the river much better, and for wildlife and for natural landscape. So partnerships with municipal governments and with environmental organizations and agencies. We just haven't specifically said we're going to stretch our dollars as far as we can because we know how to partner. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I know.
We can't go it alone. This is not one of those types of, we're not there anymore.
And especially upstream people, stop sending your water here.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to be sure, I mean, there are a lot of really interesting green infrastructure stuff that's happening with roadways and covered parking lots that drain into trenches, that are sort of water gardens, and covered parking lots that actually have solar panels on them that drain into, green rooftops, all kinds of really interesting, innovative stuff. And we need to get on that, because I think that is one of the ways to, there are ways to deal with the stormwater coming down Hill Street besides, willow trees at the top in Berrytown is great if we can get Berrytown people to do that, but there also are ways to divert and capture that water before it gets into our storm system, or it doesn't.
There's Berrytown that here, and then you work here.
Yeah.
And then, the city is down here,
Right.
downtown.
Right.
So there's
There are places that we could capture that water. I've seen these cool things that they build sort of a bump out like you have for the crosswalks, right? So you build a bump out which is tied into the storm system, in that there's a drain either above it or below it, but it's dug out and filled with stuff that will retain water, and then planted, and the water is diverted into it. Sometimes it's just an open curb that catches the water and pulls it in, so that it gets, then it becomes a pond when the water's going down the hill, and then it's just rain garden the rest of the time. That's one thing that I keep seeing, that huge area behind in Richards Road. That's all. Let's dig a trench down the middle of that and put these things that drain into the trench, and catch water that way, because then it doesn't run off. So there, we have to sort of be creative about that thinking, and also maybe be creative about whatever, there are green buildings, stuff that could happen with any of the development projects that we do to increase housing. And that would be something to really look into, because just the more ecologically sound building is, and the easier it is to feed and all that, then the easier it is to keep it affordable too. Yeah. And all those things can be wound into the economic development if you're clever in your brain.
And that does add.
Of course it is.
But I think that wherever we can putting something like the permeable parking lots, and I think that's one of the things they're planning to do. Their street, they're changing that parking lot to make it a better working space, and I think they're planning that. So every time we do something like that, it does contribute, and people can do their own. Rain barrel, so there's a lot of people can do those things at home. It may not stop a flood from happening, but it does slow things down, and so that the systems in the river and don't get inundated quite as quickly. And I think that's That's the big thing, is how can we slow it down? And I think it sounds like that it's very dry dam, I don't know what it's really called. That works. And, you know, I don't know, maybe that's something that can be developed up a river. And that would just take us being able to work collaboratively. I don't know how the East Berry, I don't know the history of that, dry dam. But we can do something else like that for the 27th flood. But that will, do you know, Tom?
Civilian Conservation Corps.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Okay, so on our agenda, I feel like we're brainstorming and sharing all at the same time. So, let's talk about the proposals that were presented by,
What's up?
let's help. So, we've written them out, and then some of them are covered by some of these things, and then what I can do is write some of these other ones. While Beth, you want to put those up and talk about them while I write the others? Yeah, where do you want first? We can just put them on the wall. Yeah.
So,
Um,
and, you know, we said, so one of them is the prospect development, which has been in the works for a long time, and I think most of you probably know something about that. It's 91. You know?
91.
91 units that one project. And there's Wabi Park, and a little bit what we're doing with Wabi Park. That's another development. Some housing units and.
We've actually pivoted up. So that would be a multi-story building. To keep so that we could book in the neighborhood and then the single family and duplexes within the neighborhood. That was just for North End, people really wanted to stay the neighborhood.
Products broken through, there's some flood mitigation, efforts that we wanted to use. In
Yeah,
those,
some people would call it the Edgewood Brook, the one that runs crosses Nelson, goes down and back on. Well, not like it's school anymore. Down and back to the cemetery and then down.
what one is that? Okay.
there's actually two. There's Edgewood and Potash. One goes.
But they meet.
But they meet at the bottom of Courier. So the one that where we were talking about Courier Street, there's one that comes down behind all those houses, and one of the houses had a landslide, and then there's the one that comes down by Tom's house, and they meet at the bottom of Courier. So there's two little brooks there.
There are some operations auditorium to make it more accessible and usable, emergency shelter. And that's one of the ones. Brook Street debris project, there's some debris racks that aren't functioning terribly well, and so it's, you know, getting those rearranged so that they do function better. And patch the debris. So I think they went really well. And they did their job. They did their job until the river kept coming. Yeah, it wasn't. And they're gonna clean that out. They're gonna clean it out and they're gonna make things like a little differently. Yeah, position. The homes, we talked a little bit about that earlier. There's some young, suggestion that we do some downtown, infill housing development and incentives. You know, they're all apartments above the downtown buildings, and maybe we could get some incentives to the property owners to get that. Get those units up to code. I mean, it used to be that people lived down. And they don't, you know, they're everything else. But some strategic planning for the grand list, we were talking about, you know, more, I think Betsy mentioned more properties and units to help mitigate some of the problems. And so that's on the list to do some strategic planning to figure out how to draw a grand list.
There's the project at 143 North Main, which is being slated to be housing. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
Slated to be housing.
Right. The former Newberry.
Oh,
Yeah. Very attractive. On Main
We
Street.
do have the stormwater system on our list for, major upgrade, and as Tom explained, we have already in spring the assessment of it, so that the engineers, once we know what we have, it can tell us what the best use of our money to upgrade and, upgrade and fix it. So we'll put a round figure for grant money for that, because we won't have the specifics yet. But it's on
The timing for getting that data in place 2 years from now.
Yeah. About a year and 4 months from having it complete. We'll get parts of it.
There are some things that probably we could instinctively start working on.
It's interesting. I'm not a river scientist. So the one thing that I've said from the very beginning, I'll listen to the science. And you're right. There are some things, some smaller projects that we could instinctively start working on. Riverbed management. You don't need to be a rocket science to see a 5-foot tall lump of sand sitting in the middle of Stevens Branch. So, okay, there are some things we can do, but until we really come up with, in my opinion, until we come up with a real plan, we need to make sure that we have all the data.
And I totally think that that's a great idea. I just am very nervous about waiting too long.
I agree. If they would go faster, I would kiss them.
So we have the public safety building alternate access to the public safety building, which last one didn't get to. I think the access is being built. It's being built. Yeah, that was on the slide. And then there were some things that came out of the meeting. More housing, child care, grocery store, flood retention and green space, all of these things have been at least touched on in our discussion.
So I'm trying to write down the ones that are not
Not one of these guys.
yeah, and I may have done elevate homes, but that's okay. So what we want to do is if you have questions about these, because we haven't talked about any of those, if you want to understand more, and then all of these ideas that you've just come up with, some of them would be maybe in tandem with some of these things like elevation, stormwater system maintenance upgrade, preserving housing would fall under elevation maybe,
Green infrastructure.
or green infrastructure. But green infrastructure is not up there, but it's I written it down.
Can you explain the brand of strategic plan?
There's some money for having consultants help us actually strategically plan how we're going to grow the grand list rather than simply letting it happen. Like grow like
So you have, it's a small,
it's small.
it's a $250,000 estimated ask, and it says consultant study evaluating our current grand list, projected losses to the grand list from future flood projects, current needs in terms of types of buildings, et cetera, and scoping out how Berry City could grow the grand list to meet future budgetary needs so that we have a clear strategic plan for how we add housing and commercial buildings with the goal of being able to provide more resident services.
We do have a lot of different planning processes. It just seems like maybe that would be at the top of my personal list. I'd see that money going very nicely.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do is have you're leaving soon now.
I was supposed to lose on that.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying. Thank you for staying. Thanks for your ideas.
The-
What we wanted to do is have you vote and just with stickers. Which ideas do you like?
Some of these are already going on though. Where's the money coming from the things like the public safety act is already built? Where's that money coming
Well, some of the things are already happening. Prospect Heights has already started and Wabi Park has already started, but
So
it's
should
just,
I vote for that? And just keep this extra money, or is that something we can take out and have the money for other things?
well, that's part of the question.
Yeah, it actually,
They're not fully funded.
it's done it.
Yeah.
So for Prospect Heights, you know, again, we're focusing on housing. It's not often you get the opportunity to vary, actually build housing where it's not gonna flood. Prospect Heights, like Governor said, so we received $2.8 million from the Northern Borders Regional Commission, which is just a funding mechanism made up of all New England states federal funding mechanism. So we received $2.8 million from them. We received $750,000 in the federal budget.
Yeah.
And so we've got a total of, you know, give or take 3.5 million. It's about a $9 million project cost. And then what the city would do is they would sell lots. Depending on your particular situation, we could sell lots at a reduced price to support subsidized housing. But if you're a nurse who just wants to build a home, who's working at the medical center, you'd probably pay $75,000 for a lot. We take all of those proceeds and roll that into another housing fund and give it back. So with Prospect Heights, the reason that I'm big on that is number one, I'm big on housing. We need it. We need new housing, not just supporting existing, but we need further. And also, we're give or take halfway there. It's too good, and if we don't use that money by 2026, it all goes away. So it's, for me, it's about effort.
It's up by, the whole Prospect Street.
If you go Berlin, go up Berlin, and you go out Country Way. Go to the backside of Country Way, and it's that plateau right there. I mean, obviously, you know, you've got stormwater standards, wetland standards, you've got all these standards. So I think out of this a total of 30 something acres, we would only develop on, I think, around 20 of them.
And I assume there's been studies done.
Yeah.
So that, you know, during.
No. The city actually, we just completed, you know, I've got to remember to have Nicholas put that on the city webpage. We just completed a feasibility study that said, no, you can do it safely and develop other people. Exactly. Wouldn't be fair to give me 2 votes.
Not one, is that a problem?
So, let me, so let me explain to you. Sorry, to interrupt you. There's a lot of choices up here. I just wanted you to know what it feels like to be on city council with lots of options, and you only get to make, you only get to choose a few things. So you have 4 green stickers and 1 red sticker. The red sticker is the thing that you think is the most important thing. Like that would be your top thing. Put the red sticker or orange sticker, whatever you want to call it. And then your other stickers should go on the other things that you think are important. Okay? But you would like to see us apply for grant funding. Now there's very small numbers, so we could have literally 1 dog. But we wanted to give you all a chance to vote and give us your feedback. Tell us what you think.
What is for you?
Well, yes, and I appreciate that, but see, actually, I want some feedback.
I would vote for you again.
Oh, thank you.
Just so I'm clear.
That's your top one. Number 1, you're like, if we did nothing else, please do this one thing. Put that one. That's okay. It's okay if you think that's the most important thing because we haven't fully funded it yet. These things are up here because they still need more money. Yes. Yes.
Tom, you said that we partnered with, the Central Medical Center. They're one of our partners at Prospect Heights.
They actually have a representative on the board. And what they're interested in, interestingly, they have, so in the very beginning, they said, look, we have 200 positions open at the medical center in Berlin. 200. And a lot of times we can't find housing. So they said, look, if the city pulls this off, we're interested in partnering. So we want a seat on the board. We're interested in partnering with a developer to develop 10 or 20 units, and we'll pay them, some sort of stipend or some sort of partnership stipend to do it. Down the street, they're represented on the board. And, like I said before, I look at Prospect Heights the same way I look at any housing development in the city. If 30% of the people need subsidized housing, that's what you need to build, or you're building the wrong thing.
So what do they bring to the table? I guess that's what I'm asking you. What?
Well, we've got their CFO. So in terms of, running the numbers, looking at the development numbers, making sure that those are sound. Down the street, same thing. Angie Harbin has been on that group for Town of Barry. Their manager is actually on the Prospect Heights Board of Directors. Our manager, Nicholas, is on the board. John Mandeville from Central Vermont Council on Aging says, I want to see senior housing in the city. I want to see real senior housing. So we've just got to, people just bring different perspectives. So it's kind of like this meeting. Everyone has a different skill. You're welcome. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, Prospect Heights, does it need community block development grant?
Yes.
It does. Okay.
Well, if we want to get it done.
I'm just curious because that makes a huge difference on, bringing that grand list value up allows us to make decisions about, the 60 other people that aren't gonna.
Yeah, this would be conservatively just municipal funding. Prospect Heights would add about 350,000 annually to just the municipal side, not even counting education.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And as Councilors Spalding and former Councilor Booton and Councilor Hogarth know, 350,000 to the Barry City budget is a pretty big deal.
Yep.
Where are we with Wabi?
Wabi Park is, so that could actually be, this changed a little bit. So this is actually 64 unit 5-story building is Wabi Park. Wabi Park is right in back of the budget inn and right next to the public safety building. It's about 2 acres of land. And so we reached an agreement with the Wabi family who originally donated that to the city. And we said, hey, if we want to put housing here and we put Wabi Park somewhere else in the city, in the north end, of course, would you be okay with that? So originally we thought about trying to cobble together a piece of land somewhere between 1st Street and 6th Street and plunking a 64 unit building kind of in the middle of the north end. After we listened to the north end neighbors and they said, look, we really want to retain the character of our neighborhood. We said, okay, we've got the high rise here. I'm not a big fan of the high rise. It's too damn big. It's North Barry Manor. So we got North Barry Manor here, 10 stories. Do me a favor, next time you drive by North Barry Manor, pull over so you don't have an accident. Put your hand on the countdown 5. Put your hand on the top 5 stories, like just block them. A 5-story building would not be offensive in the north end. It really would. If you cut North Barry Manor in half,
Would that be like the high tax?
a little bit taller, one story taller. It wouldn't be that bad. So after going to the north end meeting, we pivoted and we said, okay, we got North Barry Manor here. Let's do another higher building here and let's keep the neighborhood. Let's develop the neighborhood in the middle.
And Seminary Street is not up there because it's already.
Oh, that's a done deal. I wrote my letter of support this week and I think they're voting on the tax credits
That's wonderful.
next week. So no, that's 32 units or something like that.
And we're,
That is on the corner where Key Bank used to be, on the corner of Seminary and North Main.
Yeah.
So you know where Barry Bank is? Where it's right, okay, yeah, right next to the church.
So hopefully you all are thinking about where you're going to put stickers. These, I put them together because Wabi Park has morphed into this, which was originally the north end. idea, so this is all one point, and then elevation, we had written elevation, and then you all came up with preserve current housing, elevate homes, move electrical, et cetera, up to the first floor, so they're kind of the same sort of idea, so, that's here. So go ahead and vote, give you a few, let me move these over here, I feel like these are gonna just get forgotten. Double up, and so,
You put the modify the river under the stormwater upgrade.
so these are all separate, except for those couple.
That's done.
And downtown, this is separate from 143 North.
Yeah, that is about, getting incentives for the, property owners to get their, the upper story, apartments.
So do you like things, okay.
Like renovating office commercial space into a housing.
And where is 143?
That's the Newberry's building.
So that's downtown.
Yeah.
Right. But on Main Street, right?
Yeah, just FYI, so, you know, we get rule updates from ACCD clarification on this plan almost daily. One of the things that they let us know is that we can't provide direct incentives. So we as a city couldn't say to a developer, hey, we're going to give you $500,000 to develop the upper floors of your building. But what we could do, and what I proposed with 143 and ACC said, sure. They said, what if we're an equity partner? In other words, what if the city's actually an owner, a part owner of that building? So you know, because, I mean, as a developer, I love it because they're free. But if the municipality had, say, a 20% interest in a building on the north end, and then 20 years from now, somebody sells it for $20 million, we get our money back, and then some. So I love that answer when ACCD said, no, you can't provide free money, but you can make an equity investment. That was music to my ears. So you're just hearing about this for the first time because we just got that. Okay.
So that might say downtown housing equity.
Yeah, and so it would be an equity infusion where, hey, look, like it or not, we're your partner. We're giving you money. So, you know, it gives us a seat at the table. I love that answer when they gave us that.
So it wouldn't really be an incentive anyway.
Right, but it's still, we'll just.
It would be better. We get our money back.
City.
Yeah. Well, and the same with Prospect Heights. I mean, we'll sell the lots and we'll take that money if the city, like I said, on a sliding scale, if the city gets, you know, Down Street can't afford to pay $75,000 for a lot, but a nurse or a doctor probably can. So we'll take that money and roll that money into another housing project.
But the city doesn't own Prospect Heights.
City actually will own Prospect Heights. We will actually be the owner.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going back to the old days where we should have it now. In the old throws, municipalities actually did streets. Developers didn't. You know, if a municipality wanted to grow, like Woodland Drive, Nelson Street, you know, Delmont, where Sonia lived, I mean, the city built those streets. The developer didn't build them. The city built it. And the city sold the lot. I think I've been telling anyone who will listen, that is the better model.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's go vote. Get out there and vote.
What might be?
No, sorry.
You know what? I let her do it just for being creative.
Sorry, Michelle. Sorry.
Hey, no one else thought of it. If I were you, I'd rip it in half anyway.
I guess. Go back and read.
But 5 years ago, we bought a piece of property up on Abbott, less than this.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Vermonters, and that's now.
Oh, that's, so you're right, my neighborhood. Yeah. Now, you want that long road, was it county?
Oh, well, I understand that.
Oh, yeah.
Some acquired. And my daughter lives in the house on Belmont.
Oh, no.
So our backyards to each other. Which what I bought was the garden. For that house. Back at the garden.
You bought the land that I was gonna put my swimming pool on.
We are. Oh my gosh. It's a. Our house, anyone can build your porch.
Yeah.
Wine cellar.
Yeah. Wine cellar.
Whatever it was.
Exactly.
All of a sudden-
It is a.
Folks, I'm just gonna move up here just so that people can see.
You know. The work to raise kids. It is. But oh no, that's her. Yeah. No, I don't even work like our house has all kinds of stuff in it.
Sorry, Brian.
Hold on.
How long have you?
She'll never tell that. I've heard. Since 1995.
And for how that's for doing this. We're not gonna be around. Long as they appreciate all that. Somebody else's kids and somebody else's families. are gonna be-
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
The building will help you. Okay, has everyone voted?
We'll also take a picture of it afterwards so that we'll share it on 802 Scoop as well.
Okay. So. It looks like the big winner is the North End. 3 orange dots on that. And the orange dots just signify that's a top priority for someone. I would say Prospect Place is another one because there's 3 green dots and 1 orange dot. Stormwater system, maintenance and upgrade, 1 orange dot and 3 green dots. And then regional watershed management has 3 dots, 1 orange, 2 green, and then downtown housing incentives has 3 green. And there's a couple with 1 dot. Modify river. Preserve current housing elevation, that technically has 3 dots. Because there's 3 here. Right?
It's a short person.
That's okay, that's okay. I was thinking it as separate, but that's 3. And then 1 for citywide flooding protection warning system, green infrastructure, green buildings, lower roads, permeable roads, and 1 for Courier Park, Potash Brook, and then Bay Water. Oh, and a frame market. Fantastic. What do you guys think?
Go for it.
Go for it. That.
Clarification of the downtown, so for those, and I'm not asking you to disclose your votes, but for those folks who said, I want to see more downtown housing incentive. Could we make that, if we made that, I want to see more downtown housing, would it impact your vote?
The reason I voted for it was because I like the idea of unused space being brought back to life.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much how you were gonna fund it or how you were gonna plan it, but to do that. I don't know if we really are scared to put new housing down there because that is flooding all the time. So, but those houses those things are already there, so we might as well fix them up. But you're gonna put new stuff there, better make sure it's, but
No, I agree. I mean, interestingly, City Place never flooded.
Yeah.
Never, Downtown housing on Keith Avenue, never flooded. So obviously, if you build new housing downtown, and I can tell you, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. First of all, I'm doing it. Karen and I are doing the building right over here. You look at the back of it, it's green now. Look at it when you go. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful building. It'll only be 8 units. Part of me says that if building owners wanted to utilize the upper floors, they'd utilize the upper floors.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm going to tend to focus more on getting rid of 143, which is an eyesore, and building a big building, having the city partner with a developer.
Yeah.
Not me, this is going to be the last one I do for a long time. But build some size, because I've always believed if you want a downtown to be vibrant, go people.
And what is it building they work on that?
Are you gonna go out this way to go to your car? Look right across the parking lot, you've got the Cornerstone Restaurant, and then you've got 59 North Main. It's the next building over, and you'll see it because the windows are all new. When we've got this really, Karen picked the colors, she does a great job. I can't pick colors, she can pick colors. The building's gonna look stunning when we're done.
And is it,
8 units total, yeah.
Thanks, Sonia.
So, yeah,
So yeah, regarding the downtown housing incentives, because I would have put a sticker on there if it included the 143 North Main Street, because I think they're both the same. It's a specific project within that downtown housing initiative. And I don't know why it's been split out from those two, but,
well, so I'll tell you how this happened. These were different lists, so Amanda had one list and then Tom had a list. And they have some overlap to them.
Yeah.
But, 143 North Main was listed as sort of a separate project, and then
Yeah.
Amanda had listed downtown housing incentives as a separate project. So I can see your point. It just, we were writing them out based on how they were showing up on the.
And that is how they were presented.
Yeah.
And then since then, Amanda and I have gotten together and honestly, look, as long as we get housing downtown,
Yeah.
I don't care. And as long as we get housing downtown, she doesn't care.
Yep.
So we're combining.
yeah,
And then
that makes sense.
that new thing where even if we said to a developer, hey, here's 500,000, go build units, we can't do that. So in some respects, if it's not a bigger project, there might not be a lot of building owners who say, okay, I want the city to own some of my buildings.
Right.
So,
But this new.
yeah, but we'll do some, I mean, you'll see something, Michael, because like I said, I'm gonna support housing. That's where housing in the north end are gonna be and obviously infrastructure to a lesser extent, but the north end and housing, new housing is gonna be at the top of my list.
I voted for some of the things I did, and not for the 143 Main Street, because I see that is a more longer term project. It first has to have ownership, has to have partnership. That's gonna have to be demolished, cleaned up, and there's a whole series of taking something down and taking it apart before we can even build. And that's why I was thinking this money is going to be available soon. And to put it into things that are either in process, like Prospect Heights is in process. It's already going. The North End, we're already moving in that direction. We're all at the Wabi Park. And I saw those things as not having the bigger ears that 143 Main Street was presenting. And I don't disagree with that as a potential, but I think for right now, that's why I voted for those other two things over the 143 North Main Street. It's got a ways to go.
Thanks for bringing that. Anybody else?
When I first. Before I moved back here, but, I lived in a Main Street, in that spa, in the building spas and. But it's great to be able to live. And
Yeah.
people would love to.
It's a community building thing when you can walk to your post office, your library, and some kind of a little food
thing, it's shown that it builds for a healthy community. You said,
Thank
you
you.
want people downtown, you have to have them move there.
Nice meeting you.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Because if not, we can wrap up and go home. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your, yes.
I will say, part of the development, Prospect Heights, I know that for me, the reason why I supported those was because it rules that grand list and gives us the flexibility as a municipality to make other decisions.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for recording or
Thank you.
live streaming.
Thank you both of you for doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your help.
All right.
And
Just put it back.
Just remember, folks, I will be taking pictures of the wall and of the board, and I'll be posting those